How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at The Reckoning. This is from 2021 and put out by Shudder. This is directed by Neil Marshall and stars Charlotte Kirk, Joe Anderson, and Steven Waddington. Now, I guess I should get into why we're covering this right now. Neil Marshall, he had some good hits right at the beginning. Dog Soldiers and The Descent, both are classic, and we can see printed across the top of the DVD from the guy that gave us The Descent and Game of Thrones. Later in his career, he would get into doing a bunch of TV, Game of Thrones included. Now, later on, for Shudder, he would also make The Lair, and quite hilariously, they would just say from the creator of The Descent, and they took Game of Thrones off the cover. But anyway, he gave us good stuff, and when The Lair came out, I watched it, and The Lair wasn't good. The Lair was shockingly generic, but if you wanted a lazy Saturday afternoon shoot 'em up aliens movie, it's passable. But I was really just shocked that the guy that gave us The Descent could also give us The Lair. And then I found out that this movie was him as well. And it also features the same star, Charlotte Kirk, and I think in both movies she's also listed as a writer and executive producer, as well as Neil Marshall is. So apparently this whole Shudder, Neil Marshall, Charlotte Kirk thing, it started here. So I was kind of curious what was going on and what their first collaboration was like. And strangely, this one is worst. The Lair is not a good movie, but The Reckoning is solid boring. And I do want to say before I get into this, I'm not some comedy teardown YouTube channel. I don't take any real pleasure in pointing out when a movie's bad. But I have to be honest. I have to give my honest opinion. This one's pretty dang bad. It's one of those that I was constantly pulling up the time bar and just seeing how long I had till it was finally over. And yeah, boring, super predictable, and just, yeah, not great. Again, I don't want to harp on it any more than I have to, but not a good movie. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the plot. I'm not going to do any major spoilers, but I do want you guys to have a basic understanding as to what this is about, and maybe we'll pause to do a little bit of analysis, but we'll do the plot, and then after that, I constructed the 5 reasons why this movie doesn't work. So, first off, the plot. We get a family. Mother, young baby, and dad. The dad gets sick, because this is the plague years, 1665. This is a movie about witches, and you said it in 1665? Come on, learn from Fear Street, right? But anyway, the dad's sick, and he decides, I don't want to spread this to my family, better go and hang myself. And for real, like, just go quarantine. Like, I don't really like when movies present suicide as a good, noble thing to do. And he's like, better not let my wife get sick, and he just dies. You could have gotten better, dude. And we also get a really long, drawn-out scene of her overly dramatically burying her husband. It's a serious thing, but boy, it was almost funny just how long and overly dramatic this grave digging scene is. But anyway, we then find out that it was actually her landlord. You see, there was a sick guy at the bar, and never mind that he was coughing all over the place. In order to kill him, the landlord switches their drinks, and when he drinks the drink, he gets sick. And I'm not 100% sure if this would work or not in real life, but whatever. The landlord murdered the husband in order to say, hey, you're all alone now, you're gonna be in financial restraints, maybe you'll sleep with me in order to pay rent. And when she doesn't do that, she gets accused of being a witch. And from there, we pretty much know where this is going. There is a little bit of a twist where it turns out her mother was also accused of being a witch, and the witch hunter that burned her mother at the stake is now going to be interrogating her. Okay, unlikely, but whatever. And we get some PG-13 torture, and a lot of this plays out exactly how you think it's going to. So let's go ahead and break out the 5 reasons why this movie doesn't work. Number 1 is this is just another witch hunt movie. And again, these witch hunt movies are all almost exactly the same movie over and over and over again. I think the first prominent one was the Crucible, and in the Crucible stage play, they were talking about communism and how people were scared of being accused of being a communist, and the play was written to say, hey, don't do that. Let's not turn on each other. Let's not all start backstabbing each other. We need to be nice to each other. We need to, not just go on wild tangents like this. Don't call each other witches. Don't call each other communist. Be nice. And I think we can see from Twitter that the Crucible utterly failed, and human nature is something that's quite hard to beat. But ever since the Crucible, we got just essentially a bunch of clones of it, and all these other witch hunting movies, injustice, and then torture, and then usually a sad ending. Over and over and over again, nothing new, nothing creative, no one with as good a meaning as the original, and it just sucks, So, yeah, another witch hunting movie, another unnecessary one. And on top of them being all the same, this leads into point number 2. They are in turn boring, and this movie is a 1-2 punch of boring and predictable. And why that's so bad? Boring is bad enough. Slow, not entertaining, I have to sit there and watch this whole thing. But when I'm bored in the present, but it's also predictable, being able to see what's going to happen just means I'm bored now and I can foresee future boredom. This doesn't help. She's gonna go out, she's going to be tortured for a little bit, she's gonna go back to her cell and have a hallucination, and we're gonna do this until the movie says it's climax time. Not good at all, really, at all. 3, this movie has a significant villain problem. The villains in here, they're evil. I want them to not succeed. That's not all you need for a villain. The villains, whenever they pop up, they're huge jerks, but I don't like to look at them. I don't like them in my story. I just see them and I'm like, can this guy get his comeuppance already? Because I am tired of looking at him. Like, for example, good movie villains. Darth Vader was super cool. Hans Gruber in Die Hard had a ton of charisma. Freddy Krueger was funny. I need to explain something. If there is just one goal for a movie, the one goal for all movies is simply make the audience look at the screen. That's it. And whenever these villains come on, I don't want to look at the screen. They're not engaging in any way. They're just jerks, and I'm like, can they just fail already? So yeah, the villains are in no way captivating. Oh, there's a witch hunter guy. Seen him before. He's a jerk, and he just don't like them. But anyway, four. The suffering and the torture. You know, you're dealing with real world stuff. The witch hunts were bad, and you have to show this to the audience. You have to illustrate it. But when you do a PG-13 suffering and torture scene, that really doesn't do credit to how much people really suffered, you know? And you get these scenes, you know, like the first torture bit, she's getting whipped. And real whipping like this can tear your back to flesh ribbons. It is horrifying. But they throw the water on her back to clean off the blood, and you see just a few little scars. And I'm like, that's the lightest that you possibly could have gone. And then you get, you know, a few other ones, and really only the last one, I feel, is truly gruesome enough. And I'm like, okay, finally we're getting somewhere. But you know what happens? The same thing that always happens in this movie. Cutaways. That classic PG-13 cutaway. Every single torture sequence. I'm sorry you guys are jiggling. Once again, my cat got into the studio. Fluffy kittens when we're trying to talk about torture. Can you not mess with the tripod? We're talking about dark and serious stuff. But anyway, yeah, when your torture isn't scary, we're in a post-Saw world, you really need to amp it up. And I don't know if they just didn't want to make something gory or if they just didn't have the practical effects budget. But yeah, no, this is tame stuff. But lastly, point 5, the tone in this movie. The movie has a general tone, dark, dreary, and boring that's spread throughout. And I hate this tone. But then there's massive tonal inconsistencies. In this movie, it's primarily not horror. So how do we get it broadcast on Shudder? Force in random bits of horror that totally break with the tone. Every now and then the ghost of her husband will show up, and every now and then an evil spirit will show up, and she'll have sex with the evil spirit for some reason. It pays off into absolutely nothing. And it's random horror scenes that don't fit with the rest of the movie, but for real, screw that original tone. At least something is happening in these horror sequences. You also get the end of the movie, which I won't spoil, but we get random, like, Three Musketeers swashbuckling action for like 10 or so minutes at the end. Totally does not fit with what we were doing, but you know what? Again, at least something happened. This little action movie that came out of nowhere, where were you for the first hour and a half? But yeah, this movie's not good. It is, I think, roughly an hour and 50 minutes. And for real, give me the editing scissors. I can chop this thing down to 70 minutes easy. And yeah, it's just another overly exaggerated witch hunt movie. And I do really like, when you look at this movie on IMDb, literally the first bit of trivia is at the end of this movie. It says 500,000 women were executed for being witches, 500,000, and IMDb trivia is like, no, there were not nearly that many. That is a cartoonish number we pulled out of somewhere. And yeah, it's just super boring, and I really was just waiting for this movie to be over, and I can't believe that this is the same guy that gave us The Descent. I can't believe this is the same guy that gave us The Lair, though. So, really, what happened to Neil Marshall? I haven't seen a lot of his middle movies. I'm wondering if there's a, no pun intended, but I'm wondering if there's a descent in the quality of his films during those middle movies. That would totally make sense. Yeah, Neil Marshall, man, he gave us some good stuff. I do not know what happened here. That's really sad. Anyway, obviously can't really recommend this one. To everyone who's watched so far, though, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Shudder playlist. If you want to see my review for The Lair, that's in there, as well as Color Out of Space with Nicolas Cage, and also lots of me talking about the Creepshow TV show. Those are cool. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Shudder playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.